Namaskaraः sarvebhyah sudhibhyah jana. The topic of my paper is how our ancient systems kept one type of diseases at bay. At Vedic times, living was simple with clean surroundings followed by a certain discipline and lifestyle. Vedic wisdom simply devised a few methods of playing with human psyche by adding rituals to common man's living. Acts that were good for health were laced with rituals. For instance, offering arghya, water to the rising sun, doing yoga, swadhyay, and agnihotri yagya on daily basis. All this required waking up early, which again is very good for keeping good health. Some of these rituals were connected to seasons, some to certain occasions, and some as per the requirement. The ritual of Yagya, performed along with Havan, was very important in their lives. Havan is putting oblations in the sacred fire along with chanting. These oblations included clarified butter, certain types of small pieces of wood, gugul, barley, and black sesame seeds. Atharva Veda says that one who inhales the aroma of the burnt gugul fall ill. Clarified butter removes the poisonous air, helps in killing the bacteria and insects, and fills the air with good and healthy aroma. Also, the flame of sacrificial fire going up with the air helps in evaporation and bringing about rains, essential for crop growth, which provides us with food grains. A cycle, says Gita. Annat bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhava yajyat bhavanti parjanya yajya karma samudbhava. Some of these yajnas were recommended to be performed daily, for instance, Agnihotra, some on certain occasions and some during the change of seasons, so as to avoid people from falling sick. Ritavas te yajyam vitanvantu, says the Yajurveda. We can see the importance of Haman even today, as we all know that in the Bhopal gas tragedy in the year 1984, only one family was not affected, and that family indicated that they were doing Agnihotra every day. The French scientist Trele has done experiments with Havan and documented that the smoke rising out of the yajna had lessened the virus and bacteria in the atmosphere. Similar finds are also confirmed by other scholars and doctors. Mm, Here, there are a number of instances and references given along with the scientist's name and their experiments, which I am leaving out. The Agnihotra helps the reduction of impact of atomic pollution. Also, Atharva Veda declares Satayushaha Havisha, means by performing Yajna, one lives 100 years. Our rishis, the importance of pure air for lungs and heart, which made the lifespan longer and ensured good health, and hence they were always recommending performing yajnas. They knew the principles of modern science. They knew that oblations turn into gases. They knew the importance of cleanliness and maintaining distance to avoid any kind of infection. They also knew that the air in contact with trees becomes like a world physician. Vishwa Bheshaja. Hence, they always encouraged planting trees. Some of the favored plants were Vat, Bilva, Bel, Neem, Amla, Shalmali, Shami, and so on. The in fact, Pippala is said to be emitting oxygen at night. And in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, Ashwatthah Sarva Vrikshana, thereby establishing that people is the best amongst all plants because it emits oxygen 24 hours a day. It was insisted in Hindu mythology to plant tulsi in every home simply because, apart from other medicinal properties, it helps in purifying the air. To build the immune system strong against COVID, doctors are recommending tulsi leaves, which used to be there in every household in olden days. This is the reason why we find most of these plants and trees in and around temples and holy places. And the other important thing in the ancient lifestyle was yoga. Yoga means to join. Yoga joins one with God, joins the body with the soul, and balances the body and the thought. While performing yoga, one not only does physical exercises but also does breathing exercises and meditation. And today, we all know that the doctors are repeatedly saying that breathing exercises are like an armor for attackers like COVID. The difference between yoga and modern gym is that while doing yoga, one is not at the risk of contracting any virus or infection, since one is not doing it on any instrument used by another person. In yoga, one does not come into contact with others as it is not done in a closed room. Usually, people do yoga by themselves or in the open when they are in groups. Even when they are in a group, their mats are separate, and yoga controls not only the body but the mind also by meditation and chanting of mantras. Chanting of mantras repeatedly is called jap. To keep the count, this japa is done on a necklace of tulsi or rudraksh beads. In fact, Rudraksh anti-inflammatory and antibacterial properties. Some say that drinking water of soaked Rudraksh builds resistance to various diseases. So in this case also Vedic yoga is far superior to modern gyms. The third important thing to fight COVID is the recommendation of washing hands again and again and for certain duration of time. In our ancient living, washing hands and feet was a must before every meal, before going to bed, before entering the house, and after coming from outside. Na aprakshalita pani pado bhunji. Hands should be washed after touching salt, clarified butter, oil, wheat, and a spoon should be used. All the references are given here. It was said that water cleanses the body. Adbhi gatrani shuddhyanti. In fact, Manu Smritis recommends that without a reason one should not touch even one's own organs like eyes, ears, and nose, etc. In those days, people had a bath every day and wore washed clothes. Markandeya Puran says one should not wear the same clothes without washing them and should always dry oneself properly after a bath. We find that many a times while in a hurry, people do not dry themselves properly and end up having skin problems. Gobhil Griha Sutra also says not to wear wet clothes. Na ardram paridadhit. Vishnu Smriti says that clothes once worn should not be worn again before washing. All the references are given here. The Padma Puran says that one should not use the towel which has been used by another person. Mahabharata says one should not wear clothes that have been worn by others. One should use different clothes while sleeping, while going out, while doing puja, worship. Bath was recommended after every haircut to avoid any kind of infection. In those days, there were no soaps or detergents. People used to cleanse their hands with mud, and there are types of muds described, and the types of mud used, and that has been described at length. Reference is given here. When there was any birth in the family, the mother and child were quarantined for 40 days. When there was a death, the person who did the last ritual for their departed soul was quarantined for 13 days. This was only to avoid any outside contact, lest it will not give any contagious disease or infection. No cooking was done during this period in the house of the departed soul. Neighbors provided the food for 12 days. In fact, any outsider avoided having water also in such a house, only to avoid any kind of infection. And this was considered a part of the ritual to ensure utmost cleanliness. When the dead body was removed from the house, the entire house was washed with water, and people coming from the place of last burial ground were supposed to have a head bath. After the dead body was taken from the house, the whole house was washed to avoid spread of any kind of virus. The clothes that were worn on the body of the departed soul at that time of the death and his beddings were given away to avoid any kind of infection. Our dead were burnt and not buried. Now the whole world is saying that this is better than burying the body, as the latter has chances of spreading viruses. Just yesterday on TV, I saw that Sri Lanka has made it compulsory, the burning of the dead and not burying the body. The Vedic ways of disposing of the dead body are being recommended by the scientists today to avoid any kind of spread of virus or infection. In our household, prayers and worship places doing arti with the burning camphor was only to kill viruses from the atmosphere. Blowing conch and ringing bells was also for the same purpose. Advocating vegetarian food, eating with hands and not with spoons, having a bath in the morning, all this was in the lifestyle to keep COVID type of diseases far, far away. To an extent, apart from other things, aping the West has harmed us a great deal. When one blows birthday candles on the cake, there is a chance of droplets coming out of the mouth and thereby spreading germs. When we use spices, some may call it messy, but it surely strengthens our immunity as it is accepted all over the world. Our food is laced with things that kill germs and keep our immune system strong. For instance, the use of ginger, garlic, onions, turmeric, cinnamon, and so on. Our culture did not recommend late night drinking parties for celebrations. Rather, festivals were celebrated in temples, communities, and on river banks. In festivals like Diwali, every nook and corner of the house is cleaned, house is newly painted and whitewashed, and cow dung is used to keep insects at bay, acting as a repellent. Now the whole world is following our Indian way of greeting, that is Namaste, where we join both the palms and bend forward a little. Namaste literally means my greetings for you. The West now is looking up to us for everything that our Vedas have guided. The USA President Donald Trump is having Vedic Shanti Path from the Yajurved in his offices. Many schools all over the world are majorly in England and Germany are teaching Sanskrit in their schools and colleges. The West has realized the worth of our treasure of our Vedic knowledge. It is now for us to realize and make it a way of our life. Only then, only then will we be able to keep COVID type of diseases at bay. Thank you. Namaskar.